So this is my second time in Ghana. The first time was 20 years ago. And it was actually in April of 2002. And I have a couple pictures. But I wanted to thank Professor Adebanji, thank the provost and the dean of international, everybody at KNUST. We've been wonderfully welcomed. It's really been an honor to be here, and we had a great ushering in ceremony, and lovely dancing and music. So thank you so far for the excellent welcome. I also want to make sure that I do acknowledge the distinguished professors from Nigeria and from Ghana. We also, as Professor Adebanji mentioned, we have distinguished guests from Pakistan and India and Kenya and Uganda, Tanzania, and we have from Ethiopia. We have right now our placeholder Brazilian, Professor Awe, but tomorrow we'll be joined by two of our colleagues from Brazil. We also have Stat Labs in Egypt in the LISA 2020 network, and Osama, Professor Hussein was not able to join us, as well as Professor Esterhuizen from South Africa, and we also have Lab Botswana. Not officially, we don't have a lab officially in Botswana yet, but we do have a dear friend in Botswana, as well as Zimbabwe. And just don't want to miss where else do we have labs? So the LISA 2020 network has labs in 10 countries, and 7 of those countries are in Africa. Okay, so tonight I'm going to give a talk about statistics, about statistical collaboration in Stat Labs and the LISA 2020 network. And the title really is Promoting Statistical Practice and Collaboration in Developing Countries. This is also the title of the new LISA 2020 book, which we will have a short ceremony after this talk to unveil the book. So this symposium and a lot of our activities of LISA 2020 are funded by USAID. So we want to thank our partners at the U.S. Agency for International Development. Okay, so this is, I don't know if you can see, but 20 years ago, these are all pictures from Kumasi. I came to Ghana before I came to Nigeria. In fact, Nigeria, I only visited in 2015. So I had been to Ghana for 13 years before visiting your partners to the east. And I know many of you have asked about my family. They're not able to join. My wife is now in her 3rd trimester of pregnancy. And this is a picture of Max. So at our next gathering, hopefully we'll be able to bring my whole family, including the unborn young one. So this is the LISA 2020 Sustainability Symposium, and we are here to make our individual labs more sustainable and our network as a whole more sustainable. We've been driven by passion, and we need to come up with even more structure and methods to keep our passion sustainable. And so the symposium schedule, in brief, after this keynote and the book unveiling, we'll have some food afterwards. Tomorrow is an all-day mixture of poster sessions and talks about individual labs' sustainability experiments. So that's one of the benefits of the network is that we have so many different labs from so many different countries, different universities, and we can learn from each other. So 30 of our labs did sustainability experiments, and we're going to hear the results. And hopefully something that you did, you will share, and that will be valuable to another lab, and you'll be able to learn best practices from the other labs on Tuesday. We're going to follow that up on Wednesday. Professor Adabanji will be giving a keynote, and then we'll have a summary of the Tuesday presentations, and then a workshop. So be prepared to consolidate what you've learned on Tuesday in the workshop on Wednesday. And then we're going to go on a field visit in the afternoon. On Thursday, the focus shifts from individual labs to the network. And so we have a draft charter. We're going to be discussing the structure of the network and how we can make the network stronger and sustainable moving forward. And on Friday, it will be our wrap-up session, farewell, and return to Accra for many of us. So the motivation for this symposium is to share best practices in making stat labs stronger and more sustainable, and then collectively determine the future of the network. And while we're doing it, to create stronger relationships. So hopefully you were able to meet some new people on the bus or at dinner tonight. We'll be able to strengthen our individual relationships because that would make it easier to share the best practices and to borrow strength from each of the labs to make the network stronger. So the outcomes that I'm hoping for this week is that each lab returns home with a plan for stronger sustainability, how to make the stat lab stronger, and that we will have a new LISA Global Network Charter, and as I mentioned, stronger individual relationships. So I am a statistician, and I know many of you are, and I am really passionate about the extraordinary power of statistics. You know, we as statisticians and data scientists can enable and accelerate research. Scientists need our work to make discoveries. Policymakers need to be able to use the evidence and data to make better policy. Businesses also need statistics and using data to make better decisions, business decisions. And so there's lots of aspects of statistics. And you know, we don't just analyze data, we also help collect the data, interpret the results. And ultimately, what we want to do as collaborative statisticians is to help transform evidence or data into action, into action that will benefit society, improve development, etc. So I became a statistician because I love working with a biologist or a government official or a history professor. I work with lots of different faculty at the university in different fields, but then also I work outside in the community with local government officials and local businesses. And the thing that I think is missing from a lot of our work in statistics is the action part. We have lots of theories. Oftentimes those theories don't translate into action. And so that's what LISA labs are about, is to be able to translate our mathematical knowledge, our knowledge about computing and data, and actually translate that into solutions and better decisions and action for the benefit of society. And so what needs to happen is the statisticians, we need strong technical skills. And faculty members in the classroom are doing a great job of teaching our students technical skills. We also need collaboration skills, and that's what the LISA labs are founded on, that it actually provides our students with opportunities to apply their technical skills in collaboration with policymakers, researchers everywhere. And if we have the transforming evidence into action mindset, then we really will be engines for development. We will be drivers of progress in our local communities and in our countries and around the world. So a collaborative statistician can enable and accelerate many different research projects or business and policy projects. So this collaborative statistician is here in the middle, and with the proper education, training, mentoring, and support, that's something that the LISA 2020 network can provide, is that mentoring and support and some training. Then the collaborative statistician can enable and accelerate research, can help governments make better decisions, and can support NGOs, business, and industry to make better decisions with data. So how we do that is something that we're still learning, but there are some best practices that I would like to share with the network this evening. And here is a framework that I've developed about 5 essential elements of interdisciplinary collaboration. And it's called the ASKER frame. So like you're asking somebody a question, ASKER. And it stands for attitude, structure, content, communication, and relationship. So these are 5 essential elements, the components of collaboration. And by learning this frame and practicing it, it really helps produce effective collaborations, because it reminds us what to focus on, and we can focus on the individual components and then bring them all together as we get more and more practice meeting with domain experts from lots of fields. So I'm going to go through this framework briefly, and then I'm also going to talk more about the theory of the stat labs and how we can become strong and sustainable, and then a little bit about the future of LISA 2020 network. So the first element or component of the ASKER framework is attitude. So it's a collaborative attitude that sets the foundation for effective collaboration. And there are attitudes that we have about ourselves, there are attitudes that we have about the domain experts that we work with, and then there's even attitudes that collectively we can have about the process. So I think it's really important to realize that collaboration is important. It's not just the technical skills that are important. The transforming of evidence into action is important. These skills can be learned. And so I teach my students, they learn collaboration skills, they become excellent collaborators, even if they didn't think that they could at the beginning, because they do see this, they do adopt this mindset that collaboration is important and can be learned. And that we can make deep contributions to inspire action for development. This is an attitude that we should have about ourselves. An attitude that we should have about the domain expert is that they are experts in their field. We're experts in statistics, they're experts in whatever field that they come to us. And together, the domain expert and the statistician can accomplish much more together than either could alone. So these are some attitudes. So two questions that you could ask yourself are, if you want to collaborate to make a high impact, like what is driving you in your work in the lab? And also, do you want to collaborate well so that everybody benefits? So that's a win-win situation for you, for the lab, for the domain expert, for the university. Everybody wins when we collaborate. Structure is the next component of the Asker framework. And some of the structure that we use are you need to determine your goals with the domain expert, agree on a timeline for the project, agree on what you want to accomplish in the meeting that you have. Understanding by the end of a meeting who will do what and by when, and how you will be working together. Is this going to be is it a one-off? Is it a longer term relationship? You're going to be communicating by WhatsApp or email, and how you will share in the benefits or rewards. So if it's just somebody says, hey, please, here's my data, please analyze it, that's not necessarily a collaboration, and you might not share in the benefits or the rewards. So you want to have a discussion with them to understand how you can both benefit from a collaboration. Specifically, I use in LISA at University of Colorado Boulder, the power structure, and that's actually included as a bonus chapter in our LISA 2020 book about the power structure. So just an example of a collaboration is a microbiologist needs assistance analyzing data. So she invites a statistician to collaborate. And so they determine their goals are to publish a research paper. And the timeline is that they want to submit by the end of the term. And then the roles, who will do what by when. Statistician will model and analyze the data, create the tables and figures, and write the methods, and write out what the key results are. And then the domain expert will write the introduction and the discussion and conclusion. And they will meet, they decide they will meet every 2 weeks. They will ask questions in between meetings via WhatsApp. And then in terms of the benefits, the microbiologist will be the lead author, and the statistician will be the second author, and they publish in a high impact journal. So this would be an ideal collaboration where she could not publish in the high impact journal without the benefit of the statistician. And as statisticians, we don't collect data on microbiology. We don't do that type of research. We collaborate with the people who do, and therefore we benefit because we are adding our work to then make a contribution to science, to leading journals. The third component of the Asker frame is content. And basically, we just have to remember that every project has 3 components. The first is qualitative. It's like, what are the research questions? What kinds of data might be useful in answering these questions? And then the second part is quantitative. And we're usually very comfortable with the quantitative part. We know how to analyze the data and access and analyze the appropriate data. But then we're not done. Once we've analyzed the data, that's only still the second part. The third part is qualitative again. It's transforming or translating the statistical results into the actual research answers to the research questions or the recommendations for policy making. And so it's very common that statisticians just try to focus and dive into Q2, the quantitative. So just remember that we have to think about the qualitative aspects first and then end. We begin and end with the qualitative. And the quantitative is just one piece in the middle. So the fourth component of the Asker framework is communication. And the goal of communication is to create shared understanding. We both know that each other, that we each know the goals of the collaboration and how every aspect of what we're talking about affects the goals of the collaboration. So it affects answering those research questions or making those business decisions. So there are many ways that we can effectively communicate and ask great questions. Actually, one of the key aspects of this theory of communication and statistical collaborations is that there are always two goals. We can communicate to accomplish two aims, and that's accomplishing the task and achieving results and strengthening our relationship. So we want to have strong relationships with domain experts, and we want to understand the content of the project and make a contribution to the to accomplishing the results and accomplishing the task and achieving results. So an example is that I read books to my young son, Max, and I read basically for two reasons. The first is to accomplish the task and achieve results of making him learn new words, to exercise his imagination, to learn the language, to like to read. So those are things that will help him in his education moving forward. And that's a good thing for a parent to do. A second thing, which is obvious to many of you, is that besides all of the tasks and the results, the main thing is I just want to create a strong relationship with my son. And so sitting with him, spending time with him, it doesn't really matter what we're doing. We're actually creating a strong relationship. And so that's what I think we should be doing with all of the domain experts that we work with. We should be communicating to understand the project, to help them understand the statistics, and we should be communicating to create a strong relationship. So whenever we ask questions, for example, we can try to ask them in a way that creates a strong relationship, as well as gives us the information we need to accomplish the task, achieve the results. The final component of the ASKER framework is relationship. And so, we have some tips, but I think each individual kind of knows better how to create strong relationships. But some aspects are to express authentic interest in the project, and to even say that I'm really excited to work with you on this project, and I'm actually excited to learn about your field, and I'm excited to create a relationship, a strong professional relationship. So ways to do that, we can always ask for feedback. So I've started to do this with domain experts that I meet with. I say, this is not going to be the first time, this may be the first time we're meeting, but it's not the last time. So what went well in this meeting? And what do you think we might change to make our next meetings more effective? But just asking that question really helps strengthen the relationship. And the information that I get can actually help accomplish the task. So that will be an example of a great question. Helps accomplish the task and strengthen the relationship. So respecting the domain expert is important. Learning and using the language of the domain expert's discipline. And then recognizing that building relationships requires time, patience, and trust. So some ways to build trust, you want to be reliable, be honest, be credible, and you even can be vulnerable. That creates trust. So if you don't know the answer, you say, I don't know, I will find out. And that honesty and even vulnerability helps create this trust and strong relationships. So this is the ASKER framework. Some kind of takeaway points are that we want to adopt the collaborative attitude. So you want to find a domain expert to work with that you both help each other. You want to agree on the structure. The structure can change depending on your own cultural context, but you want to at least have shared goals and shared benefits. You want to make deep contributions, and that's that only happens after you translate your quantitative results into qualitative recommendations or conclusions. The fourth point is communicate to create shared understanding with the domain expert, and then strengthen the relationship in whatever ways you think are best. So doing these, starting off doing these 5 things, you'll get better at collaboration, you'll have more success at it, you'll want to do it more, you'll keep on getting better by following some of the ASCR framework. And this was written up in a paper in 2019, and it actually won the Best Paper of the Year award in the Journal of Statistics Education in 2020. So it's open access, freely available for everyone to read and to share with your students, to share with your colleagues, etc. So I wanted to talk kind of just briefly about a project that I'm currently working on. And it's actually because I have an ulterior motive that I want to recruit a statistician to help work on this project. And so the project is about using statistics to understand the origins of enslaved people from the 19th century. And this is a collaboration with a historian at the University of Colorado Boulder. And so he, it's maybe not often that you hear about a collaboration between a history professor and a statistics professor. But that's what we're working on now. And if you think about it, it actually makes a lot of sense. Back in the day, before computers, data were on pieces of paper, they were in journals, they were books. Data were like words on a page. And so historians, they were primary accessors of data. They read books, they read articles, they read through people's journals, they collected oral histories. Well, they haven't been so fast, the historians, in keeping up with the data revolution, but now they are. So now data, as we know, are numbers on a spreadsheet. They've moved beyond the printed versions of data. And so historians also are moving beyond that. So now historians are starting to analyze historical data to understand about the past. So, there are lots of old data sets. And one of those old data sets was actually compiled by my historian colleague about conflicts in the Oyo Kingdom. So these are maps of the big region. We're actually in the Ashanti area. And the Oyo Empire was basically southwest Nigeria and surrounding areas. And then jihad and like different factions, basically by the middle of the 19th century, that empire sort of disappeared. The point is that there were conflicts, there were wars from all sides, and so we actually have historical data about every town, every village, every city that was attacked or destroyed by various factions from 1816 to 1832. So just a short time period. But during that time period, there were lots of these conflicts, and we've used kriging, a spatial statistics technique, to basically smooth the individual data points to create a conflict surface, the surface of historical places of conflict. And this conflict resulted in the enslavement of lots of people who were then transported through trade routes, either north into the Sokoto Caliphate, trans-Saharan trading routes, or to Atlantic ports. And the goal of this research is to actually understand, given the historical conflict at the time, and given that a person may have left a slaving ship from Lagos in 1825, what was their origin within Africa, within this region? So historians, they know where people went, but they don't know exactly where people originated. And this work has been published, and we're looking for actually somebody who can help assimilate new sources of data. There are lots of names of people on slave ships, and there are we have lots of data that we're really interested in using to improve our models. And the goal then is that the research will help better understand the history of Africa, the entire Atlantic world, where the ocean connects rather than disconnects the history of Africa, the Americas, and Europe. So we're actually, my colleague, he's like, you're going to Ghana. There's going to be lots of Nigerian statisticians. He's like, make sure you talk about this and see if there's somebody who's interested in carrying the project forward. So this is just an example. We have a very high, a paper in a high impact journal. This is published just a couple months ago in the journal, the Royal Statistical Society, Series A, Statistics in Society. And so there's possibility with more data and better models to make this even more of a impactful research. So now I'm going to talk about the stat labs. So in the LISA 2020 network, we have 35 individual stat labs that are full members of the network. And these labs, they do three things. They train statisticians to become effective interdisciplinary collaborators who can move between theory and practice. They create a space for collaboration. So it's where people can come when they need statistics help, and it's the place where statistics students can get real experience, practical experience, to translate their theoretical understanding of statistics to transform evidence into action. And then stat labs also teach short courses and workshops to improve statistical skills and data literacy widely. And now every stat lab has tremendous potential. So by educating collaborative statisticians and creating the space for collaboration, and by upskilling, by teaching data skills to workshop participants, all of this together creates new knowledge and can be used to transform evidence into action for the benefit of society. And so, all of the stat labs do these to some degree. And then the question is, how can we do it more? Where do we start? How can we make our individual labs stronger and more sustainable? And I think the first step really is to focus on training our own students and staff. And so if we look at the very center of this, this is like a positive feedback loop, where if a stat lab starts off with a mission to train the next generation of statisticians, to transform evidence into action, and they have the right administrative structure, then with the training, then they can provide the services. They can provide these collaborations. They can provide walk-in consulting, or 1 hour with the statistician, or walk-in clinics. And then those services, the word starts to spread a little bit, where there are very satisfied domain experts. And, they come in with, the projects that need work with the statistician. And if we use those projects to help train our students, then our students will do a good job because they have some initial training. They'll do a good job on the project. Those projects will lead to impacts. So they'll lead to some sustainable development actions. And these impacts will then gain the attention of the university. And they'll give us more support, more space, potentially funding, some in-kind contributions. And then that also leads to more projects, which gives more opportunities for training and better training for our students. And then that's when the students are really well trained and mentored by experienced coordinators or directors or stat lab mentors, then that's, I think, when we're going to be transforming evidence into action. And then when we get the national headlines for how statistics has helped the national development, then we'll get the external funding, sustainable funding, which then, of course, leads to even more projects, more training, and more impacts. And so we just have to keep on, trying to go around this cycle to train our students, work on the projects, have impacts, and let that naturally grow to having very strong development impacts. So, there are many components of a stat lab. I think that we could think of it in terms of the human body. The heart is the mission, goals, and objectives. Why do we exist? What is that purpose that we have? The background of the stat lab is the administration. It's the structure that we have. The muscles, who's actually doing the lifting? Well, hopefully it's not just the professors, the lecturers, but it's also the students. And so that they will do the work if they have the training to do it. And they want to apply their statistical skills. The head of the body, the brain, these are the services, this is the expertise that we provide in statistics. The legs, communication strategy, the blood is support from the university to keep everything functioning. And then skin, the outside that people see are the impacts and the outcomes of the stat labs. So this is a picture of Lisa. This is actually now 8 years ago. In this summer, we actually had 6 of our collaborators were from Africa, 6 were from Asia, and 6 were from North America. And so now we have Lisa has grown to be a network, and we have now Asians, Africans, South Americans, North Americans. We may even grow the network further. This is now my current students in Lisa. And so I use every project that we get to try to train my students. So every time I meet with a domain expert, I'm trying to have a student observe, and instead of me asking the questions, I turn to the student to ask the questions. So they get really good experience. So starting off with training, we can do it in a number of ways. Mentoring on projects. So every time you are meeting with a domain expert, bring along a student, and instead of you doing all the work, have the student ask the questions, have the student do the analyses. We can teach collaboration skills in the classroom. I actually teach I teach a beginning and an advanced course in statistical collaboration. And we can also conduct, one-day workshops or hour-long sessions for our students to improve their collaboration skills. And so when we do this, when we start off with the education and training, and then we build up that infrastructure for the stat lab, we can become engines for development. And what I mean by that really is that each stat lab trains a cohort of students and other staff members to be effective collaborative statisticians. And then they work on projects with domain experts that can impact thousands or millions or billions of people. So we have to think about how, our stat labs, we may be starting small and having impacts in our university, in our departments, in our university, and then in the community. But as we connect and as we grow stronger as a network, we will start having more global impacts. So just a few of the benefits of creating and sustaining the stat lab are, I think for me, the biggest benefit is that the students get really good training. They get to see statistics in action. They get to put statistics, make statistics actionable. So they make a real impact, and then they get great jobs and have fulfilling careers. Another benefit of the stat lab is the domain experts who benefit. So they advance their research, they make better data-driven decisions. These result in high impact publications or better policy for the government. There are postgraduate students in other fields who come into the stat lab, and we can help them publish papers, graduate faster. They can get great jobs and contribute to society. 10 years ago, I visited South Sudan, and I was trying to get a stat lab started there. We don't have one there yet. But I heard this story from was the registrar of the university. He told me this story that just recently, a postgraduate student in pharmacy had come to him as he was leaving the university. He came to him to drop out of the university. And the registrar asked, why are you dropping out? And the student said, it's because I have been trying to solve this problem for 9 months. I've been banging my head against the wall, can't do it, I'm not going to be able to solve the problem, so I have to drop out and leave the university. So please sign this form so I can officially withdraw. And the registrar asked more, so what is this problem? And it turned out it was a statistics problem. And so the registrar said, hey, I have a friend in the statistics department. Let's go visit him. So they went, and 45 minutes later, the problem was solved. And this is just one story that I heard about. There are thousands where we don't hear about that because they leave, they drop out. And so having the stat lab and advertising it, having that banner, means that postgraduate student will be, okay, before I quit my studies, let me go into KNUST LISA and see what it's about. And then maybe 45 minutes later, their problem will be solved as well. So but then the benefits of the stat lab are not just for the people who we help. Statistics faculty and staff advance in their careers. We can have co-authored publications in high-impact journals. Collaborating means that we have access to data that we did not have access to before. So we can even use that data to develop new statistical models and advance our own careers. And then all of this leads to increased prestige and impact for the department and for the university, and ultimately for the community, for the nation, and for the global society. So those are just some of the benefits of creating and sustaining the stat lab. And so driven by this, 10 years ago, we created the LISA 2020 network. The vision was to build statistical analysis and data science capacity to transform evidence into action. And our goal 10 years ago was to have a network of at least 20 labs in developing countries by the year 2020. And so that's where the name LISA 2020 came to be. And so we have 35 labs in our network, and not quite half, but a good proportion are from Nigeria. We have 4 labs in Ethiopia and Ghana, 3 in Brazil, 2 in Tanzania, 2 in Pakistan, 2 in India, and 1 lab in Egypt, and in Kenya, and South Africa. And as a network, we're going to have to decide, do we want to expand? How much do we want to expand? Do we expand like within each of the countries already listed? Do we try to expand to other regions, to other countries? And we will be discussing this on Thursday. I'm going to not go into detail on this, but that we have developed a 7-step process for new labs, and Tanya Pruitt is the network coordinator. So she has been managing the process, 7-step process. But we have, you do some steps and you become a proposed member, and then you become a transitional member, and then hopefully you will become a full member. So all of our full members have been voted, they've been approved by 2/3 of the existing labs to become full members. So now the benefits of being a member of the LISA 2020 Global Network is that stat labs learn from each other. So we can share best practices. And what works well at University of Ibadan, I can use that and improve my own lab at University of Colorado Boulder. So we can share best practices in labs. We can foster global collaborations and international connections. So, as we work on, basically we're going to have local solutions to global problems. So maybe, the global problem of sustainable development or climate change, we can have local solutions that are connected, and we share best practices from each other and build up to having global solutions to global problems, and collaborating on international high impact publications. Being part of the network means that we can keep up to date on global advances, so we can share information, technical skills throughout the network. I really would like to have more exchanges between labs. The best way to learn is kind of in person, exchanging personnel between labs. And then being part of the LISA 2020 network can lead to increased prestige and impact for the department and for the university. You're not just one lab, you are part of the global. So I'm just have a couple more slides. This is about the successes and accomplishments of the LISA 2020 network. So up until the end of the year 2021, we had 35 labs in 10 countries. And these labs trained more than 2,182 statisticians in effective collaboration and bringing them along in statistical collaboration. And these statisticians collaborated with more than 2,274 researchers. That's a lot of projects. How many of those were like that pharmacy student in South Sudan who, working with the statistician, really enabled them to achieve their professional goals. Up until 2021, the network, according to our data, taught exactly 399 short courses and workshops to exactly 14,699 attendees. And then, one of our biggest achievements of the last few years is the LISA 2020 edited volume. So we're going to have an unveiling ceremony just in a few minutes for this the LISA 2020 edited volume. Okay, so now this is the last slide, and this is a picture of where I think the LISA global network should go, and that the idea is it's an analogy of a big tent. So the big tent that attracts people from far away to come in, and so we want to have a big open door to welcome new stat labs into the network, because there's so much potential for stat labs, so much potential for impact, that we want to have more stat labs. And these stat labs can learn from all of our experiences. And then, while the stat labs are under this tent, under the auspices of LISA 2020, we can help them all develop strong and sustainable stat labs. So this is what we're going to be doing tomorrow, sharing best practices, helping each other develop strong and sustainable stat labs. And then the stat labs themselves can enable and accelerate the transforming evidence into action. Like, this is really what we want to be doing, is transforming evidence into action for the benefit of society, for sustainable development. Now, the role of the LISA 2020 network is sort of, it's the tent, it's an umbrella to bring everybody in to create a community or a network of stat labs. And so that's what we're doing at the symposium. We're bringing people together. And then one final thing about this big tent is it's visible from far away. And so it's a great way to then publicize and advocate for the extraordinary potential of statistics and data science and stat labs and the LISA 2020. So these are components that I'm sure we will be continuing in the in the next version of the LISA Global Network. And so on Thursday, we're going to be creating the structure and even a new charter for the organization to help us accomplish these things.